I've been saying that RJ Davis is Carolina's MVP, but Elliot Cadeau is the most indispensable. At least at this point in the season, I've been wrong about that.
This is Tyler Hansbrough, and you're listening to Locked On Tar Heels.
You are Locked On Tar Heels, your daily podcast on the UNC Tar Heels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey there, what's up? It's Monday, November 18th, 2024. Welcome into the Locked On Tar Heels podcast, the only daily North Carolina show out there. I'm your host, Isaac Shade, and you're joining me at the place to get your Tar Heels content every single day. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Really appreciate you making this your first listen or watch of the day to get your Tar Heels content. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. You can get started the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers place a $5 bet, and you'll get $150 in bonus bets if you win. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. Hey, want to welcome in all the everydayers joining us, and of course, all our Locked On Tar Heels Discord members and our Locked On Tar Heels insiders. What's up, everybody? Let's get after it. Coming up on the show today, we're going to have our Four Corners recap from the American basketball game on Friday night. It's funny to say it that way. We'll have our Shady stat of the game from both basketball and football. Carolina's football victory over Wake. Omarion Hampton's absurdity, but not being the most important thing in Carolina's turnaround. Our weekend whip around and all of that. If you do want to go more in depth with both the basketball win and the football win, you can check out our live postcast reaction shows from those. They're on the YouTube feed, they're in your audio feed, whatever your preference is. But here's where I want to start. I've been discussing quite often this preseason, honestly, and throughout the early couple weeks here. You know, RJ Davis is Carolina's MVP, or he's going to be Carolina's MVP, but it's Elliot Cadeau that's the most indispensable player on this team, right? Like, it's a similar thing maybe you could have said about the 2012 team. Like, maybe you would have said Harrison Barnes is Carolina's MVP, but Kendall Marshall is the most indispensable player, right? Like, it's a similar vibe. And I even said that in our live reaction show on Friday night, but I spent some more time thinking about that this weekend, and I'm wrong about it to this point in the season. Well, you know, who knows what's going to happen, but right now it's not a correct statement. Why? Because right now Elliot Cadeau is North Carolina's MVP. He is doing it all over the floor. He's facilitating, he's scoring, he's getting up three-point shots, he's defending like crazy, getting steals. Elliot Cadeau right now is presenting the total package for the North Carolina Tar Heels. Here's what he's doing offensively so far. 15.7 points a game, 7.7 assists to just 2 turnovers a game. That's a plus 5.7 assist to turnover ratio. 40% from three. And as I said, he's getting multiple shots up a game from deep. That's important for him keeping defenses honest. He's getting to the free throw line a ton and hitting them much more efficiently. On defense, and I know what I'm about to say is both offense and defense in a certain way, but averaging 3 rebounds a game, 2.7 steals a game. Like, what? That number is bonkers. Will it continue? I don't know, but that's great. And I obviously don't have a tally on how many floor burns Elliot Cadeau has because he gets down after it, man. This dude is taking his defense seriously. And here's what's also great is that these averages I just shared with you, it's not like one massive game and then, you know, several subpar games. He's doing it so consistently. All 3 games so far between, and even you hear me say all 3 games, right? Like, it's a small sample size. I get that. But one of those is against the number 1 team in the nation, right? So we'll get a lot more as we go to Maui and play Alabama and all that. I hear it. But so far, he has had between 12 to 18 points in all 3 games. He has had between 7 and 8 assists in all 3 games, 1 to 4 steals in all 3 games, 6 to 9 free throw attempts in every game, and 3 to 4 3-point attempts in every game. Like, do you see that? Like, the average isn't being tricked by one big game. He's just consistently showing up. So again, I don't know if this is a season-long reality or just the way things are starting the season, but right now, Elliot Cadeau is North Carolina's MVP, and there's no bones about it. Now, here's what's cool. As part of Elliot being so efficient and doing so many things, he's allowing Carolina to do things that they otherwise wouldn't or couldn't do. For example, Hubert Davis is preaching tempo, pace, run. And to this point in the season, Carolina's been able to do that. The interesting thing is that they did it against American, who is a lesser talented opponent. I recognize that. But an opponent that coming into the game was next to last in the country in adjusted tempo at KenPom. And yet Carolina still did everything they wanted to do from a fast break standpoint. Most fast break points of the season so far. Highest percentage of total points coming from fast break points. And the number of possessions, right? Like they are still doing it. The night of the American game, Carolina jumped from 30th in adjusted tempo at KenPom all the way up to 10th. Even now, after a couple other teams have played, they're still sitting at 14th in the nation in adjusted tempo. And I know that Coach Davis isn't going to be satisfied with that, but it's a good start, and he's got to be at least somewhat pleased with the start Carolina's getting. And a lot of that, again, it's not just about Elliot, right? Like there's so many guys that can get out and go and run and push the pace. And it's not adjusted tempo is more about number of possessions. And so Carolina, this also means they're not just pushing the pace, but they're being active early and finding the best shot and not hesitating. And that's really important. Another thing is that it's helping because Carolina is running and attacking and doing what they need to do. I mean, you've seen it. We've talked about it. They're living at the free throw line. Just 16 attempts against Elon, but then 31 attempts against Kansas and 34 attempts against American. And they're converting. Like, again, as I've been jokingly saying, it's one thing to get there. It's another thing to convert. And Carolina is, man. They are good. I mean, it's just insane what they're doing at the free throw line. And so just keeping that going all season long. Let me tell you in real time where they're at. Free throw percentage. Whoa. Second in the nation per Sports Reference, 85.2 as a team. Is that for real? What does KenPom say? I find it hard to believe that is accurate. Second in the nation in free throw percentage. Where are we at? KenPom says sixth. So, and that's probably more real-time update. Still, top 6 in the nation in free throw percent. My goodness. Tar Heels, keep doing what you're doing. High volume. Because where are they in terms of free throw attempts? That's another part of that equation. Free throw attempts for Carolina. 34th in the nation in free throw attempts per game. So, yeah, I mean, gosh, doing it at every level of that. All this said about Elliot being the MVP and all of this and how Elliot influences pace and free throws and all that, RJ's got to get on track. And I don't say that in a I'm concerned sort of way. And I know some people are, and that's fine. I don't blame you for that. For me, it's just a right now. But I mean it in a way of Carolina can win games without RJ Davis performing at RJ Davis levels, but they will not have a strong showing in a setting like Maui or against Alabama unless RJ Davis is RJ Davis. Thankfully, it's getting guys other opportunities and forcing them to step up. But RJ needs to be part of that equation too. And thankfully, he's doing that in other ways. Like he's still leading the team in scoring right now, 17.5 per game. Now, while RJ may not be fully on track yet, it's great to see other guys stepping up and stepping in. The perfect example of this from Friday, man, Cade Tyson. I don't know if you felt this. I just felt relief on his behalf. Like this massive weight lifted off his shoulders as first half was just kind of, but the second half, man, and he was hustling in the first half doing stuff, but he was still hesitant with the shot. And in the second half, he was letting it fly, and he made 3 of them, and they were chef's kiss beautiful from Cade Tyson. So pleased from him, and so good to see the other things that he's doing too, not just making threes, but taking them, getting on the floor, getting rebounds, doing stuff. Very encouraged by that and want to see it continue. All right. We got to get to the Shady stat of I forgot my sunglasses. I'm just going to have to do some fake goggles as we go. They're in my car, man. I apologize. Just a total letdown on my part. Everyone's so sad. Shady stat of the game for the basketball team. 18. 18. Why do you say that, Isaac? Well, here's what's wildly impressive to me about Carolina's performance on Friday night. The Tar Heels scored 107 points, and yet the leading scorer in this game was 18. It's not often you are going to see a team eclipse 100 and actually be closer to 110 and nobody scores 20 or more points. And this is because 5 players were in double digits, 18 each for Jay Wash and Elliot, 13 each for RJ and Seth Trimble, 11 for Cade Tyson, and another 4 players who had 7 or more points, Jalen Withers, Van Allen Lubin, Drake Powell, and Ty Claude. A lot of front court guys and Drake Powell moonlighting as one. Meaning that for Carolina on Friday night, 9 players had 7 or more points. And I understand the context of the opponent, but still spreading the offensive load around like that is going to be great for Carolina's success. One other quick reminder as we get ready to move to the Four Corners recap here in a second. No Ian Jackson on Friday night, and there was no James Brown either. Officially from Carolina, lower body injuries and listed as day-to-day. So I think it's a thing. I took that to be, we don't want to risk anything before we go to Maui or Hawaii in general, where we're about to play 4 games in 6 days at Hawaii, Friday night into Saturday, and then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on the island of Maui. So I think this is just caution and concern. It sounds like there's nothing to be worried about. We are going to get to the Four Corners recap. How key and critical is North Carolina's defense this year? Plus, some love for both of the Jaylens. We'll get to that in just a second. Right after I tell you that our friends over at 5 Hour Energy know that being a passionate football fan is not just a hobby, man. It's a way of life. It takes a lot of energy to power through all-day tailgates, touchdown celebrations, or that agonizing second overtime, which is why they created Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot. It's got a special flavor called Fan Fuel, the energy shot made for just super fans like you who are the first in and the last out. You know what gave me a bit of Tar Heel Fan Fuel this week? Knowing that coming up is Maui and there's all these late games, man, we're going to need some Stand the Fan in our lives. So maybe we should load up on those. 5 Hour Energy knows that no matter what team you root for, being a fan requires heart and soul and a whole lot of energy. So whether you're prepping for that big tailgate or ironing your jersey, your game day to-do list is a mile long. And that's why the limited edition Stand the Fan 5 Hour Energy Shot is here for you to help keep you fueled throughout the season. What's your fan fuel energy this week? Whatever it is, do it with a 5 Hour Energy Shot. Available on 5hourenergy.com, and it ships nationwide. Four Corners recap of North Carolina's 107-55 victory over American on Friday night. Number 1, defense is key. The success of the 24-25 Tar Heels is going to be predicated on how well the defense performs. The offense is going to show up game after game after game. Yes, they'll have lulls. Yes, maybe they'll have a game where it's not as potent as it typically is. But my goodness, when you look at what they just did, like particularly in the second half to American, it's laughably fun and funny and quite hilarious. So first half was fine. Carolina scores, 43 points? Yes, 43 points, 1.162 points per possession. That's strong numbers. And yet, the second half, Carolina scores 64, and their points per possession is 1.730. Just know that is ludicrous for Carolina to have done against any opponent at the Division I level. But here's the thing. For North Carolina to be elite, the D is going to have to show up at the same level as the O. You know, Carolina, the first half, again, it felt like they hadn't really shown up as a team. They were only up by 9 at the break, which against Americans, kind of like, yeah, you should probably be up more. But the issue was not on the offensive end. For me, it was about the D. Here's just some shooting numbers from what American did. First half, they were 14 of 27 from the field. That's 51.9%. And from 3, they were 6 of 14. That's 42.9%. That's American. That's not good. Carolina needs to do better. Well, second half, completely different story. American is 5 of 34 from the field. That's 14.7%. And just 1 of 17 from 3. That's 5.9%. And I know some of that is just about teams missing shots, but you can't chalk it all up to that. At least some level of that. And I think a good deal of the level of that is Carolina ratcheting up their defense and being more locked in. The Tar Heels are going to have to do that if they want to win a crud ton of basketball games this year. And what's encouraging, is that when you go look at KenPom, It's Carolina's offense that is ahead right now in terms of efficiency. They're number 8 in the country. But the defense isn't like lagging far behind. They're 36th right now, and that's high level, right? It's not like elite of the elite, but it's good. And so if Carolina can just keep taking strides, they're going to get to the level of defending they want to do. But they got to get there. This season will not reach its ceiling unless Carolina figures out how to defend for 40 minutes. Number 2 in our Four Corners recap, Jaylen Washington and specifically his efficiency. You might recall that this offseason, multiple times we talked about Jaylen Washington and how efficient he was, particularly last year. And the big wondering for me was, okay, great. But this year, Jaylen Washington's volume is going to go up, like probably exponentially so. Can the efficiency maintain the level of volume rise? Well, so far, yeah, with flying colors. He hasn't just maintained, like his field goal percentage and several other things have actually gone up. Let me just give you some of that. Field goal percentage, freshman year 45.7 up to 70.1 last year, and now up to 72.2%. Volume also has skyrocketed from 1.8 attempts a game to 2.1 field goal attempts a game to now 6. So you've like tripled last year's field goal attempts per game and gone up like 2 percentage points from 70 to 72. And again, I know small sample size, 3 games, but it's an encouraging start, right? It's better than not doing it. 2-point field goals, 57.1% up last year to 74.2%. Brace yourselves for this because people would be happy to shoot this from the free throw line. 81.3 right now for Jaylen Washington on 2s. Free throw attempts, 64.7 freshman to 64.3% last year, now up to 77.8. Attempts have gone up here too. 0.9 attempts to 1.1 per game to now 3 per game. So again, has basically tripled his free throw attempts per game and has gone up 13.5 percentage points from last year at the free throw line. The one area right now that from a shooting standpoint hasn't gone up is 3-point shooting. I mean, he hasn't made a 3 yet, but he's only taken 2. And that's actually the bigger concern with me right now with Jay Wash is having only taken 2 threes through 3 games. I'd like to see 2 attempts a game from him. I think that would be a good average from Jaylen Washington. I appreciate that he's just taking what the flow of the offense is giving him instead of forcing it. That side I'm really grateful for, but I think Carolina should put him in the position to be able to do that. And it was great just in general to see Jaylen Washington break out with a career high 18 on a perfect 6 of 6 from the field against American. More of that, please, and thank you. Number 3 in our Four Corners recap. We'll get to Jaylen Withers in just a second, but right now it's about Drake Powell, who is wildly, wildly impressive to me in how quickly he is getting settled in for the Tar Heels. If you didn't see what we're calling his blurtle on Friday night, which makes it sound kind of, that's cute, but this thing was ridiculous and vicious. He basically hurdled a guy and caught his shot. Like you could have almost deemed it a steal, but it was a block. So go watch that. It's on my Twitter feed and like 80 gajillion people have looked at it. What is so impressive to me about Drake Powell so far is he feels like he really has already settled in. He's just comfortable in his skin. He knows who he is. He knows what he's being asked to do. And he's just simply going out and executing that. Is he going to make freshman mistakes? Absolutely, he's going to. But thus far, I feel like the positives are far outweighing the negatives from Drake. In this game Friday night, 7 points on 2 of 5 shooting, 0 of 1 from 3, and 3 of 4 from the free throw line. That's fine. But he led the team in rebounding with 11. One area, like for example, as a freshman to work on, 0 assists, 2 turnovers in that game. We'd like to get that up. But he added a steal. But the most impressive thing to me about what Drake Powell did specifically Friday night, and is why it's in this Four Corners recap, is, and this maturity I'm about to talk about for me is next level. Let me just go in a logical progression with me. You ready? Drake Powell had 3 blocks on Friday night. But it wasn't just about the fact that he had 3 blocks. It was the fact that Carolina got possession on all 3 of those blocks. Oh, and it wasn't just that Carolina took possession on all 3 blocks. It's that Drake Powell himself got possession on all 3 blocks. Oh, and it was also that all 3 blocks were of a different variety. The first block in the first half, he just had patient timing in the post. An American player got free with the ball under the rim. It wasn't really his guy, but Carolina just kind of got a little crossed up in defensive switching and stuff. But Drake was right there. And so he timed it out well and just like grabbed the shot. Second one, these are both in the second half, and this is the one you know about, is the blurtle, the hurdle block. And this was basically a chase down. Like he was running behind the ball handler, and jumps over, who was it, Elliot, and grabs the ball and lands in bounds. Boom, we're off the other way. And the third one, it was help defense as he's rotating over, and it was another kind of two-handed block. So I love it because there's one where he's kind of the primary defender, one where it's a chase down block in transition, and one where he's the help defender sliding over from the other side of the lane. Drake Powell can do it all, and I'm so impressed. Like in the maturity, like on the blurtle, he could have swatted that thing into the 32nd row. Like it came up to him. But he had the wisdom and maturity, third game of his college career, to simply catch the ball and start the other way. That perfect. Drake Powell, way to go. Number 4 in our Four Corners recap, Jae'lyn Withers' consistency has been there, and baby, that's key, right? This is another thing we talked about so much this offseason, is that Jae'lyn Withers, when he's doing the thing, like what we just said about Drake Powell, when he is living in his role and executing it well, man, he's money. But the problem comes when he's not consistent enough with that, or when he's turning the ball over, trying to dribble too much. That's not where Jay Witt is going to be successful for this team. And what's great is that through 3 games, he has been solid and he has been consistent. And by solid, I mean like he hasn't had to or tried to do anything outside his wheelhouse. And that's what Carolina needs from him. And from a consistency point, it's similar to what I said about Elliot Cadeau earlier. He's had between 7 to 11 points in every game so far. He's had between 7 to 10 rebounds in every game so far. And what's cool is while Jay Witt might not have the highest ceiling on the team, I'm going to take that floor that he's been giving so far every day of the week, right? It's like in fantasy football, you're trying to mitigate risk. And so I don't need somebody that one week is going to score 40 and another week 2. I'd rather have the guy that's going to get 18 to 20 week in and week out. Give me that as a floor. And that's what Jae'lyn Withers is doing so far. And it's so impressive to me. Additionally, I was talking about the turnovers. He's had, in the 3 games, he had 1 turnover against Elon, 1 against Kansas, and none against American. And on the other side of it, that against American, 4 assists and no turnovers. If he can do anything even remotely like that, Carolina's going to be in great shape with him. And at present, he is shooting exactly 50% from 2 and exactly 55.6% from 3. This is the version of Jae'lyn Withers that we had hoped for, and we got to continue to see that consistent, solid effort and play from him. Jae'lyn Withers, well done. Let's switch from round ball to weirdly shaped brown pigskin ball. Omarion Hampton is and has and will be ridiculous this season, but his production hasn't been the biggest key in Carolina's turnaround in the last 3 weeks. What has been? I'll let you in on that in just a second. Right after I tell you about FanDuel, get ready to tackle the NFL action on FanDuel. It's America's #1 sportsbook because right now, new customers can place a $5 bet and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more right there on the same page where you place your bets. How about some odds for the Maui Invitational? UConn is favored at plus 170, followed by Auburn at plus 310, then Carolina at plus 400, and rounding out the top half of those odds is Iowa State at plus 430. Think we're about to talk Carolina football? They head to BC this weekend where the Tar Heels are favored by 2.5 right now at FanDuel.com. Go check it out right now. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel. It's an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Man, this episode is also brought to you by our good friends at Game Time. College basketball season is here, and there's nothing better than the atmosphere of a college basketball game, not knowing what's going to happen in that just tiny little gym in Maui in a couple weeks. Man, the energy of the crowd, a couple weeks, it's a week from today. Holy smokes, Maui. Wow, coming. The unexpected. You just don't know what's going to happen. And thankfully, if you want to check it out, there's a ticketing app called Game Time that helps you get great tickets at a great price. And when you're getting tickets for this year, great news. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks with curation that makes it easier to save more on sports, but also concerts, comedy, theater, and more. So whether it's Game Time ticket coverage, the lowest price guarantee, or the panoramic views from the seat in your app, Game Time's got you covered. How about some tickets when Carolina hosts Alabama here in a couple weeks on December 4th? You can get in the door for $57 in the upper level. Man, great price for this game, but you can get lower level for under $200. And maybe even wait a little bit till it gets closer. See if some folks start selling off cheaper as you get there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets right now with Game Time. Download the app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Terms apply. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. I'm not sure there's a word appropriate in the English language to describe just how absurd Omarion Hampton has been this year. By the way, I am befuddled when I look at Heisman odds and don't see his name in there. Please, folks, change that immediately. And career high, 244 against Wake Forest on Saturday night. That should probably be the shady stat of the game here in a second, but it's not going to be. And here's why. It has nothing to do with Omarion. As absurd as Omarion is, for me, it's the defense getting things refigured out that's allowing North Carolina to get back to their winning ways from a win and loss standpoint. And that's because Omarion, is Omarion. You expect it. It's going to be there. He's not always going to get plus 200 or more yards rushing game in and game out, although he's done that twice this season. But he's going to be a dude. Every game he's finished this year, he's had over 100 rushing yards. But the key for me in Carolina's turnaround in the past 3 games is that, similar to Drake May the previous 2 seasons, you can't just outscore everyone with these dudes and assume that you're going to win. It's not going to work. The defense has to do their part. It might not be up to the same level as the offense, but man, it's got to come closer than it has the past 2 years and closer than it did during that 4-game losing streak. Here's what I mean. Let's just look at defensive points allowed. And I know there are certainly other metrics, but it's just a nice, helpful, big picture metric to look at it. In the 3-game winning streak to start the season, Carolina allowed 17, 20, and 10 points. In the 4-game losing streak in the middle part of the season, Carolina allowed 70, 21, 34, and 41 points. And then in the last 3 games, the 3-game winning streak, Carolina has allowed 14, 11, and 24 points. Notice a trend, do you? Because you should. In Carolina's 6 wins, they have given up an average of 16 points. In Carolina's losses, it balloons to 41.5 points. Now, I know that the James Madison game is, pushing that way higher. So I'll tell you what, in good faith, let's take out the James Madison 70 points. And still, in Carolina's other 3 losses, they're giving up an average of 32 points a game. That is double the amount of points per game they're giving up in their wins. 16 points a game allowed in wins, 32 points a game allowed in non-James Madison, in ACC losses. That's it right there. Again, obviously, it's not just points allowed. That's just one part of it, but it is a helpful microcosm of Carolina good defense versus bad defense. It's also the sacks and the pressure. It's the coverage. It's key plays. But the defense getting things refigured out in that open week after Georgia Tech is saving the season, has gotten Carolina to bowl eligibility, regardless of what happens against Boston College and NC State to end the season. Carolina's going bowling. It's happening. So, way to go. Defense, this is critically important. And as for the next 2 opponents, what are they doing from a points per game average? Boston College is 72nd nationally with 27.6 points a game, and NC State is 59th, slightly better at 28.6 points per game. For reference, Wake Forest is right in that same range, 70th in scoring nationally at 27.7 per game. So, really curious to see if this defense can keep it rolling in these last 2 games. The offense is going to score. They're going to do their thing, but it's about the defense holding the opponents at bay. Speaking of which, let's go to our Shady Stat football edition. As I said, it's almost silly because clearly the stat of the game is 244, Omarion Hampton's rushing yards. I mean, yes, true, good. But to go with our theme here, the shady stat of the game is the number 3. Why? Because from a win-loss standpoint, the 3 takeaways that Carolina had were so critical. The pick 6, the other interception, and the fumble that Travis Shaw forced. Like, Carolina and Wake were so similar looking at the stats of this game in so many statistical categories. For an example, just one, UNC led total yards 362 to 354. They were plus 8 yards on Wake Forest. As you look down the box score, so many things that were so similar like that. But the difference, the key difference in this game was Carolina had 3 takeaways, Wake Forest had 1. And Carolina scored 13 points off of those takeaways. Wake Forest scored 7. So in a game that Carolina won by 7 points, they were plus 6 in points off turnovers. That 3 takeaways is critical in this game. And again, it's about the defense doing their thing to join the offense in what they're doing. All right, let's wrap this bad boy up with the weekend whip around. Women's basketball, unfortunately, Friday night, man, just didn't have it against UConn enough. The good push in the second half, getting it cut down to an 11-point final deficit, 69-58. But the number 2 Huskies and quite frankly, Paige Beckers were just too good. Tough loss, but certainly a game you learn a lot from. Next up for the ladies is the Battle for Atlanta, starting next Saturday or this coming Saturday against Ball State. Field hockey. Yeah, moving on to the Final Four. They are 20-0 on the season. Friday in the Sweet 16, beat Delaware 4-0, blanked them. Delaware hadn't lost a game by more than a goal all season long. Sunday in the Elite Eight, Carolina had just beaten Duke 5-2 to wrap the regular season, and then beats Duke again, blanks them 3-0 in the Elite Eight to move on to the Final Four. Oh, how sweet it is. So Final Four this coming weekend. Like, there's not much rest for the weary. It's up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where University of Michigan is. They will play St. Joe's. What's up, Jameer Nelson? St. Joe's is the number 4 seed overall. So really, really good team. They've beaten Lafayette 1-0 in the round of 16, and then Princeton on Sunday 1-0. That match will be Friday on ESPN Plus at noon Eastern. So tune in for that. If Carolina should be so fortunate enough to win, the national championship is Sunday, still there in Ann Arbor. The time for that to be announced. It would either be number 2 in the nation, Northwestern, or UMass, who would upset number 3 UConn and then beat Harvard on Sunday. Let's be honest, everyone's expecting this to be a collision course for the Tar Heels and Northwestern yet again. And frankly, that's what we are all owed, because those are the 2 best teams. Would love a rematch of last year's national championship game, which, if you remember, it was absolutely insane. Men's soccer, they're still waiting on the selection show, which is today. So hopefully at some point today, we will know more about their next steps. Women's soccer, they won Friday 8-0 over USC Upstate in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Second round is this Friday against Santa Clara, who unfortunately upset BYU, means we can't get revenge. Friday, time TBD, but it will be at Dorrance Field. Volleyball split a pair of matches this weekend. Beat Notre Dame in South Bend on Friday 3-1, and then unfortunately got blanked by Louisville on Sunday 3-0. Louisville's 3rd in the nation. I mean, it's a tough, tall ask. Just a tough portion of the schedule the ladies have been going through, but they're still 19-6 overall, 11-5 in ACC play. This weekend, the Cal schools come to town. 2 more quick sports in our whip around. Cross country had the NCAA Southeast Regional Championships this weekend ahead of the national championships next weekend. The men finished 2nd behind Virginia, but that means they're an automatic qualifier to the national championship. Ethan Strand, Parker Wolf, Will Coogan, and Colton Sands all finished top 25, meaning all region honors. For Parker Wolf, now he has done it all 4 years, and he is the first male Tar Heel to ever do so. Women were 3rd, unfortunately, behind NC State, and Virginia had to be top 2 to automatically qualify. But good news, they get an at-large bid, so both the men and women will be racing in the national championship this coming Saturday up in Wisconsin. Wrestling hosted Nebraska on Friday night. Unfortunately, got beat pretty handily, 34-3. Better days ahead for the fellas. All right, guys, happy Monday. Great to be together. There was so much to unpack. A little bit of a quiet week, midweek this week, But man, stuff ramps up next week as we get into Feast Week. Going to be insane. I want to go ahead and tell you now, I am not staying up for a live postcast after the Hawaii game on Friday night. And I'm going to be returning from a trip late next Monday, a week from today. So I won't have, I'm going to have to record Monday's show before I leave. So I won't have the result of the football game or the Hawaii game. But we will have a show previewing Maui, previewing Dayton, and the whole field. So get ready for that. And then what's fun is Tuesday's show. I'm actually going to do a live show Tuesday morning where we unpack the Dayton game and get ready for the second Maui game. So that should be a lot of fun. Look out for that next week. If you haven't subscribed to the show on video and audio, make sure you do that so you don't miss a second of Locked On Tar Heels. If you haven't joined the Locked On Tar Heels Discord community, man, we'd love to have you there. It's free and the link is in the show notes. Go deeper with the show. Become a Locked On Tar Heels insider. That link is in the show notes as well. It's always a great day to be a Tar Heel. Be right back with you tomorrow, but until then, peace.